The arrival nobody expected. The sky above the royal palace turned dark, even though it was only midday. A loud humming sound filled the air. People looked up and froze. Something huge was coming. Guards ran to the walls. Children stopped playing. Elders whispered old stories, ones they had not spoken of in years. A ship silver, sharp and massive, moved slowly through the clouds. It was not a human ship. And yet, it wasn't one of theirs either. It looked ancient, but powerful not in. The royal tower, Queen Alzira stepped out onto the high balcony. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. One word floated through every mind on the planet Zarinth. Could it be her? 20 years ago, during the war with Earth, the Queen's only daughter, Princess Alira, had disappeared. Many believed she had died. Some said humans had taken her. Others believed she had run away. But now something impossible was happening. The ship slowly landed in the royal courtyard. The ground shook gently. Soldiers surrounded it. The royal banners flapped in the wind. Everyone waited. A hiss of steam escaped as the ship opened. A long ramp stretched out. But no one came. 5 long seconds passed, then 10. Finally, a figure appeared. A woman stepped onto the ramp, her movements calm, royal. Her hair was long, dark with streaks of silver. She wore a black robe with golden lines that matched the ancient royal crest. Her face older, stronger but unmistakable. It was Princess Alira. Gasps filled the air. Some dropped to their knees. Others covered their mouths in shock. But the biggest surprise came next. 2 small figures walked behind her. Children. Human children. 1 boy. 1 girl. The boy had dark brown hair, his eyes bright green like Zarinth forests. The girl had curly black hair and a quiet, serious face. They looked no older than 8. Whispers grew louder. Why are humans with her? What does this mean? Is this a trick? Is she a prisoner? Queen Alzira did not move. Her heart beat harder than ever before, but she showed no fear. Her eyes stayed locked on her daughter. Alira walked slowly, calmly, her steps strong and sure. She stopped just before the Queen's guards. "I request an audience with my mother," she said clearly. A silence followed. The Queen raised her hand. The guards moved aside. Alira stepped forward. The children followed closely. As they reached the base of the grand stairs, Alira looked up at her mother. Her voice softened. "I have returned home. And these are my children." The crowd behind the palace gates went still. Her children? She had children with a human? A storm of emotions rushed through the royal court. Anger, shock, fear, curiosity. But Queen Alzira said only one word. "Come." Alira nodded and climbed the stairs with the children beside her. Inside the palace, the High Council gathered. Long-robed aliens with glowing eyes and sharp tongues. They watched as Alira entered the throne room. The children stood quietly. Beside her, the Queen sat on her throne, tall and proud, her hands tight on the armrests. "Speak," she said. Lyra bowed her head. "I have lived on Earth all these years. I was not captured. I left by choice." The council members began murmuring. One shouted, "You betrayed your people." But Alira raised her voice, calm, firm. "I saw what you refused to see. I saw their pain, their fear, their kindness. I married a human, a man of honor, a man who died protecting me." The girl squeezed Alira's hand. "These are our children. They carry both our bloods. They are not enemies. They are bridges." The room buzzed with tension. A counselor spat. "Half-breeds? You bring this shame into our palace?" The boy looked up at him and sighed softly. "Do not be afraid." The voice was gentle but powerful. The words felt ancient. The queen's eyes widened. That language, he spoke the old tongue. Only the royal family and elders knew that language. Not even scholars remembered it clearly. Illyra's eyes did not waver. My husband was a historian. He taught our children everything, even the truths that you tried to bury. Another council member shouted, "This is madness. They are a threat." Queen Alzira stood up. Enough. Her voice echoed through the golden walls. She walked down the stairs, slowly, until she stood face to face with her daughter. She looked at the foe. Children. The girl met her eyes, silent, brave. The queen spoke again. "You say they carry both bloods. Prove they carry both hearts." Alira looked deep into her mother's eyes and said, "They are stronger than you think, and gentler than you know, just like you once were." The queen closed her eyes. Her hand trembled for a second. Then she turned to the guards, "Clear the room. Everyone out. The story was just beginning." But one thing was clear. The princess had returned, and nothing would ever be the same again. The throne room silence. The massive golden doors of the throne room shut behind the guards with a deep, final sound. The High Council had been ordered to leave. Servants and nobles cleared out without a word. Now only 5 people remained. Queen Alzira, her daughter Illyra, the 2 human children, and the silent guard who stood in the shadows. The room was quiet. Too quiet. The stained glass above cast soft colors on the walls, blue for wisdom, green for legacy, red for sacrifice. The light fell on the boy and girl's faces, making them look even more out of place in this cold alien palace. Queen Alzira remained seated on her throne, stiff and still. Her expression showed no emotion, but her eyes were sharp, watching. Judging Ira stood a few steps away. She didn't bow this time. She didn't kneel. And neither did the children. The silence stretched like a long, thin thread. Then the queen finally spoke. "You returned with humans. You call them your children. You say you married one." Her voice was calm, cold, dangerous. "Yes," Illyra replied. "I did." The queen's eyes moved to the girl, then the boy. The boy tilted his head slightly and looked back at her. Not with fear, not with disrespect, just stillness. Like he was studying her. "You raised them among humans?" The queen asked. "They were born there. They learned Earth's ways. But I taught them about Zarinth, too. About us." The girl stepped forward. Her voice was soft but clear. "We know where we come from, Your Majesty." The queen's brow rose. "You call me that?" The girl nodded. "You are our grandmother." A flicker. Just a flicker of emotion passed over Queen Alzira's face. No one else might have noticed, but Illyra did. The queen leaned back. "What do you want, Illyra?" "After all these years." Illyra's voice dropped. Lower, heavier. "I want the truth to be known." The queen said nothing. Illyra continued, her voice steady. "The truth about the war. About why I left. About what was buried." The queen's hands tightened on the throne's arms. "The truth is complicated." "No," Illyra said. "The truth was hidden." The boy suddenly walked toward a nearby pillar. His small hands touched the stone. He looked up. "This palace is full of lies," he said quietly. Queen Alzira looked at him sharply. "And who told you that?" "My father," the boy replied. The queen's voice dropped. "Your human father?" "Yes," the boy said. He said kings and queens bury truth under marble and gold. The silence returned, but this time it felt heavier. The queen rose slowly from her throne. She walked down the stairs toward the children. Her golden robes made soft swishing sounds as she moved. When she stood before them, she looked at the boy. "What is your name?" she asked. Kale, he replied. Son of Illyra, son of Jonan. The queen blinked. Jonan? Jonan. Heart? Yes, Illyra said, stepping beside her son. He was your enemy, but he saved my life, and he loved your daughter. And the girl? The queen asked, looking to her. I'm Lyra, the girl said proudly, and I remember my father's voice. He said you were powerful, but not cruel. The queen's gaze hardened. He never knew me. Illyra stepped forward. No, she said. But I did. I remember the mother who held me when I was scared. The one who taught me the sky was not the limit, that stars were ours, that our family would shape the galaxy. The queen looked away. I became someone else when you disappeared, she whispered. Illyra nodded. And I became someone else when you refused to look for me. Kale reached into a small pouch on his side and pulled out a silver coin. He handed it to the queen. This was my father's, he said. He said you once gave it to him before the war. The queen took the coin slowly. Her fingers closed around it. Her jaw tightened. He was a soldier, she said. No. Illyra replied. He was a peacekeeper. He wanted to end the war. You sent him away. But I didn't. Lyra reached out and touched the queen's hand. You don't have to hate us, she whispered. We're part of you. The touch surprised her. She could have pulled away, but she didn't. For the first time in years, Queen Alzira looked tired. She stepped back and returned to her throne. Her voice came low and unsure. You speak of peace, but the council will not listen. They fear humans. They fear you. Then show them something they've never seen, Illyra said. A queen who listens. The queen sat quietly. Her eyes looked at nothing, just the silver coin resting in her palm. Then she spoke softly. There is an old room, a chamber beneath the palace, locked for 2 decades. It holds everything we hid. She looked up. If you truly want truth, go there. Take the children. Show them what we've forgotten. Illyra bowed her head. Thank you. The queen's voice turned cold again. But beware. Once the truth rises, it cannot be buried. Again, Illyra took her children's hands, and together they walked toward the forgotten chamber where history waited like a ghost in the dark. The children speak. The heavy metal door creaked open slowly, revealing the forgotten chamber beneath the palace. Dust danced in the light of glowing blue orbs along the walls. No one had entered this place in over 20 years. Illyra stepped inside, holding Kale's hand. Lyra walked quietly behind him, her eyes scanning the ancient symbols etched into the stone. There were no guards, no council, just the echoes of the past waiting to be found. The queen's voice had guided them here, but she did not follow Dot. The center of the chamber stood a large round table made of black crystal. Around it were old relics, broken devices, and long-lost files stored in glass cases. Some items looked alien, others clearly human. Kale stepped toward the crystal table. As he placed his hand on the surface, a deep hum filled the chamber. Lines of light flashed under his palm. Illyra, he said calmly. It's speaking. Illyra turned quickly. Kale? How do you know that? I just do, he said. Father taught me. Lyra moved closer and touched the edge. This place remembers things. The table glowed brighter. Then a voice echoed from the walls soft, crackling with static. It was a man's voice. If you're hearing this, then I've failed to stop the war. I was too late. Illyra's heart stopped. That voice, she would never forget it. Jonan. She whispered. The recording continued. They said humans were monsters. But I'd seen the truth. Zarenth and Earth were never enemies. We were afraid of each other. Fear turned into hate. Lies became law. And Illyra, if you're alive, forgive me. Protect the children. They are hope. Kale lowered his hand. The glow faded. Silence. Lyra single quotes as eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry. She turned to the children. How did you know to do that? Kale didn't answer right away. He walked to a dusty shelf and pulled out a book written in the ancient Sarkari language, a language even most elders couldn't read now. Kale opened the book. He read it out loud. In the time before time, the stars were joined by threads of kindness. One thread broke. War came. But those born from both stars will mend it. Lyra stared at her son. Where did you learn that? Kale looked up. In my dreams, and from father. Lyra spoke softly. He said we're not just human. We're something new. Suddenly, a voice called from behind. That book was locked away. No one should have access to it. An old man stepped into the chamber. He wore deep red robes and had silver lines on his face, markings of a royal historian. His name was Varnal. Lyra remembered him from her childhood. He had served the royal family before the war, before the secrets. Varnal stared at Kale. You read the ancient tongue like you were born with it, he said slowly. I was, Kale replied. Varnal moved closer. That language is taught only to bloodlines of the throne. I know, Kale said. My blood knows it. Varnal looked at Lyra. This is dangerous, he warned. If the council finds out, Lyra stepped forward. They will, and they must. Varnal sighed deeply. Do you understand what this means? I do, Lyra said. It means my children are the key to ending what you all started. Varnal walked toward the crystal table. He touched its surface. This room was sealed because the truth was too heavy. If the people knew we killed peace for pride, the throne would crumble. Then let it crumble, Lyra said suddenly. All eyes turned to the girl. She looked calm, strong. If a throne is built on lies, it doesn't deserve to stand. Varnal studied her carefully. You are your father's daughter. The walls began to hum again. Kale stepped closer to the table once more. A second recording played. This time, it was Queen Alzira's voice, much younger, softer. We must protect the Empire at all costs, even if it means silence, even if it means sacrifice. Forgive me, Lyra. The recording ended. Lyra's knees weakened. She held the edge of the table to stay upright. She knew. She whispered. She knew the truth, and she let it happen. Kale placed his hand on her back. It's not too late. Lyra looked up at the ceiling, where the royal crest glowed. Faintly, we have to tell everyone, she said, even if they hate us. Varnal gave a slow nod. Then you'll need help, he said. And not from this palace. What do you mean? Lyra asked. There are others, he said. Old friends of your father. People who remember the peace he wanted. They live in the shadows now, hunted. But if they hear his children have returned, Kale smiled slightly. They'll come. Lyra looked at her children, then at the glowing table. The galaxy will never be ready, she said quietly. Kale held her hand. Then we won't wait for it to be ready. The chamber. Lights dimmed as the table's power faded. But something had changed. The children had spoken, and the galaxy would soon listen. The assassin's blade. The palace courtyard had never been this full. Thousands gathered, citizens, nobles, elders, even farmers from the far villages. Soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder on the walls. Giant banners of Zarinth's royal crest blew in the wind. The air buzzed with tension and rumors. The queen had made an unexpected announcement. Princess Lyra will speak to the people and introduce her children. The city hadn't seen Lyra in 20 years. And now they would see her again with 2 human children by her side. Not everyone came in peace. High above, in the shadow of a spire, a figure crouched silently. Cloaked in gray and black, his fingers gripped the long, curved blade. His eyes? Watched the platform below. His name was Carix, once a royal guard, now a ghost in the shadows. He had been paid well to do this job. When the human girl steps onto the platform, his contact had told him, make sure she doesn't take her next step. Below, the queen sat on her high seat, her face unreadable. The High Council whispered nervously. Varnal stood behind them, arms folded, watching everyone, especially the roof-tops. The crowd turned as the great doors opened. Princess Alira stepped out, dressed in silver and deep blue. Her children followed, Kale on her right, Lyra on her left. They walked slowly, each step sending whispers through the audience. Those are humans? Are they really hers? This must be a trick. Alira stopped at the edge of the platform. She looked over the sea of faces. Then she turned and nodded to Lyra. Lyra stepped forward. The girl was small, just a child, but she held herself with calm strength. Carix's eyes narrowed. That's the girl, he whispered to himself. He pulled the blade free. It was poisoned, silent, deadly. He aimed. Lyra looked out over the crowd, unsure of what to say. But then something pulled her attention. She stopped talking. Her eyes lifted high, far away. She saw him, the assassin. She didn't scream. She didn't flinch. She looked straight into his eyes, and in that one moment, something strange happened. Carix froze. He could still see her clear as day, but something in his chest twisted. Her eyes weren't afraid. They weren't angry. They were knowing, like she saw him. All of him. He saw a memory flash in his mind, his daughter, long gone, who once looked at him the same way. His hand began to shake. Down below, Lyra said softly, "Don't do it." Carix dropped the blade. Clattered against the rooftop stones. Guards turned their heads. Varnal shouted, "To the roof!" Soldiers rushed up the stairs. Carix didn't run. He simply sat down, breathing heavily. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Back. On the platform, Alira placed a protective hand on her daughter's shoulder. Kale stood beside her, calm as ever. The queen stood. She looked at her people. "Today," she said, "we face the future. You may not understand it. You may fear it. But you must see it." She turned to Alira. "Speak." Alira stepped forward. "You were told humans were monsters," she said, "that they stole me, that they destroyed our peace. But that was not the truth." She looked at her children. "My husband was a human, a good man. He died to protect us. These children are his legacy, and they are mine. They carry both Zarinth and Earth in their blood." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Not all were angry. Some were thoughtful. Some hopeful. Kale spoke next. "Know your language. I know your history. I've read your sacred books. My father taught me." A man from the crowd shouted, "He was human. He had no right." Kale answered, calmly, "He earned that right. He learned your words because he wanted peace, not power." Lyra looked out again. "We're not here to take your throne. We're here to give you the truth." Another voice rose. "What truth?" Alira answered, "The war was built on lies. My mother knew it. The council knew it. But they were afraid. They thought peace would make us weak." The queen did not deny it. She stood tall, but her eyes showed pain. "You brought shame to this court." One council member growled, but Varnal raised his hand. "She brought light," he said. The queen looked over her people. "I do not know what path lies ahead," she said, "but I will no longer walk it in the dark." She looked at her granddaughter. "You stopped a blade with a look." Lyra nodded. "I didn't stop him," he remembered. "The queen whispered to herself, so human, and so much more. For the first time in years, The people of Zarinth didn't cheer a war victory or a royal wedding. They stood in silence, hearts unsure. But something had changed, and deep inside the palace, in the hidden shadows, other forces began to stir. Not everyone wanted peace, not everyone wanted the truth. And someone, very high up, was already planning what would happen next. Because if a child could stop an assassin with her eyes, what else could she do? The war that was hidden deep beneath the palace, far below the great halls and shining towers, a cold wind moved through the tunnels like a whisper from the past. Torchlights flickered along the walls of the forgotten archives, dusty, sealed, chambers no one had entered in decades. Illyra walked ahead, her hands brushing the rough stone. Kale and Lyra followed closely behind her. Varnal walked last, holding a torch and a key carved with ancient symbols. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, voice low. Illyra didn't answer. She stopped in front of a massive round door. On its surface was a carved symbol, a broken star between two worlds. The symbol of the peace treaty that never came to life. Kale tilted his head. "What? Is this place?" Varnal answered, "This is where the truth was locked away." He inserted the key into the center. The stone door groaned open. Inside was a long room filled with old screens, documents, recording crystals, and war files. Air was thick with silence. Illyra stepped inside and whispered, "This is where the war really began." In a corner of the archive, Kale found an old device, flat and black, its corners worn by time. He wiped off the dust and pressed its center. A soft blue glow filled the room. A holographic image appeared. A man. He stood tall, wearing a mix of human and alien robes. His voice was calm, tired, but strong. "My name is Jonan Hart, commander of Earth's peace mission. If you are seeing this, it means I failed." Illyra gasped softly. Lyra whispered, "It's him, their father." The hologram continued. "They told us Zarinth was dangerous, that the aliens were planning an invasion. But when I arrived, I found something else. I found hope. I found Illyra." Kale stepped closer, his eyes wide. "We believed different gods, spoke different words, but we dreamed the same dream of peace, of safety, of unity. I begged Earth to listen. I sent letters, proof, messages, but they erased them. My own leaders branded me a traitor." The image glitched slightly, then returned. "Illyra and I ran. We hid. We raised our children far from war." The voice paused. "But if you're watching this, then they found us." Lyra's hands trembled. He knew. "To my children, Kale, Lyra, if you live, remember this. You are the future. Not just of Earth, not just of Zarinth. You are the bridge, a living answer to war. And to Illyra, I love you. I always did. I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you all." The hologram faded. The room fell into silence. Varnal's voice cracked. This recording was hidden by the council. They feared it would break everything." Illyra closed her eyes, holding back tears. "They feared peace," she said. Kale turned to her. "What happened after he recorded that?" Varnal pointed to a crystal on a nearby shelf. "Watch this." Kale touched the crystal. Another recording played. This time, Queen Alzira, younger, fierce, angry. "We will not bow to Earth's softness. Peace is a lie. They only seek power. They've already poisoned my daughter's mind. I have no choice. I must silence this." Jonan Hart. Illyra's body froze. Lyra's lips parted in shock. She gave the order. Lyra whispered. Lyra spoke coldly. "She sent the hunters." Varnal nodded slowly. The queen believed she was saving the empire, but she killed the truth. Kale turned away from the recordings. his voice low. So Earth lied, and Zarinth lied. They both wanted the war to last. Alira walked to an old flag folded on a table. It was the symbol of the peace mission, the one her husband wore. She held it to her chest. "We thought the war started because of hate," she said, "but it started because of fear and lies." Lyra stepped beside her. "What do we do now?" Alira looked at both children. "We tell the people. We show them everything." Varnal frowned. "You'll be arrested, or worse." "Then let them try," Alira said. "But they won't silence the truth again." Kale's voice rang clearly. "Let them try to silence 2 children." Varnal gave a bitter smile. "You really are your father's son." Back in the palace, the queen sat alone in her chamber, holding the silver coin her grandson had given her. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. A knock came. Varnal entered and bowed. He said nothing. She looked at him slowly. "Is it true?" she asked. He didn't answer. She already knew. The queen stood and walked to the mirror. She stared. Her reflection at the crown she once thought protected her people. "I buried the truth," she whispered, "and now it comes back." In the eyes of 2 children, Varnal lowered his head. "The people will soon know, Your Majesty." The queen closed her eyes. "I am not afraid of the people," she said. She opened her eyes. "I'm afraid of what comes after the truth." Far away, in the royal city, secret eyes watched the princess, the children, and the growing crowds who whispered of peace. And somewhere in the shadows, a hand touched the hilt of a blade, because while the truth had returned, so had danger. The council's revolt. The sun never rose over the palace that morning. Thick gray clouds hung low in the sky, as if the heavens themselves knew what was coming. The royal city was quiet, too quiet. No bells rang. No markets opened. The people waited. Because the truth had been revealed. And now, something dark was waking. Inside the palace. Queen Alzira stood at her window, watching the courtyard below. People were gathering again, but this time they were not shouting or cheering. They were whispering, waiting, watching. Her hands trembled slightly as she turned away. The silver coin Jonin once carried still rested on her desk. Suddenly, the great doors burst open. Counselor Drawn stormed into the throne room, followed by 5 other members of the High Council. Their faces were hard, lips tight. Soldiers entered. Behind them armored, and silent. Dran's voice rang across the hall like cold steel. "We can no longer remain silent, Your Majesty. You have allowed traitors and half-bloods to poison the throne." The queen didn't answer. Delira stepped forward, Kale and Lyra standing close behind her. Varnal stood at her side. "You fear the truth," Illyra said, "because you built your power on lies." Dran pointed a shaking hand at her. "You are not royalty anymore. You are the enemy. You defiled your bloodline. You brought humans into our sacred city." Kale stared up at him without blinking. "And yet I speak your language better than you do." Dran's face twisted. "Seize the children." The guards hesitated. Queen Alzira stepped forward. "Stand down." But Dran raised his hand and more soldiers rushed in. These were not the queen's guards. These were private loyalists, bought in secret. Trained in silence, 2 grabbed Lyra's arms. She struggled. "Let go of me." 3 others grabbed Kale. He didn't fight. He looked up at Alira instead. "It's okay," he said. "We knew this would come." Alira shouted, "No, you will not touch them." But one of the guards struck her across the face with the back of his hand. She fell to the ground. The queen gasped, "Stop this. I command it." Dran looked at her coldly. "You are no longer in command." Varnal rushed to help Alira. Blood ran from her lip. The children were pulled from the throne room. No. Alira cried, trying to stand. They're just children. Dron looked down at her. They are weapons, and we will silence them before their words burn our world. The council turned and left. The golden doors slammed shut. And the throne room fell into silence. That night, the queen sat in her dark chambers, lit only by one dying candle. Her crown sat on the floor beside her chair. Varnal entered, slowly, quietly. They've locked the children in the lower cells, he said. They'll be transported to the outer colonies tomorrow and disappear. The queen's face was pale. My own counsel. They've taken control, she whispered. You still have the power to stop them. Varnal said. Do I? She asked. I let this happen. I created this fear. I gave them the tools. Varnal leaned forward. Then break them. She looked at him. And lose everything? He answered without blinking. Or lose your soul. In the palace dungeons, Kale and Lyra sat on the cold floor. No windows, no light, just silence and stone. Kale held Lyra's hand tightly. They're afraid of us, he said. Lyra nodded. They should be. Do you remember what Father said? Kale asked. Lyra smiled softly. The stars will listen, if we speak with truth. Kale closed his eyes. A soft light glowed from his hand, in the silence. His voice echoed not in the cell, but beyond the walls. He was speaking. Into minds. Into the dreams of those above, in homes across the city. People began to stir in their sleep. Farmers, soldiers, children. They saw a boy standing in the stars. You were told we are your enemies, he said in their dreams. But I have seen your skies. I have walked your streets. I have loved your people. We are not monsters. The real danger is fear. The people tossed and turned. Some woke up with tears in their eyes. Meanwhile, in the queen's chamber, Alzira gasped. She saw her grandson standing in her mind, his eyes glowing with light. Grandmother, his voice echoed. Help us, not for me, for Zarinth. She stood up. The candle went out. At dawn. The queen walked into the throne room wearing black robes, not her usual gold. The council stood before her. We've arranged the transport, Dran said. No, the queen said. Dran's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? The children stay, she said, voice like thunder. Dran raised his hand. You have no right. The queen turned to the guards. Seize him. There was silence. The guards didn't. Move. Then one by one. They turned toward Dran and drew their weapons. Outside, in the courtyard, the people gathered again. They heard the news. The queen had overthrown her council. The children were free. New symbol was raised over the palace, a star connecting Earth and Zarinth. And far above, in the clouds, something shifted. Because when the truth rises, no wall, no lie, no sword can hold it back. The crown and the children, the sky over Zarinth turned gold as the twin suns rose side by side. It was the first time in 50 years the palace bell rang at sunrise. It was not a call to war, it was a call to witness history. Crowds flooded the steps of the royal hall. Streets overflowed with alien families, farmers, scholars, and even former soldiers. Above them, banners waved, not just of Zarinth, but of Earth too. Braided together. Today was no ordinary day. Today, the throne would change, not through blood, not through death. But through truth. Inside the grand chamber, Queen Alzira stood tall, dressed in pure white, no crown on her head. Her hands were empty, her heart heavy. Behind her stood Alira, strong and calm, with a quiet sadness in her eyes. And between them, Kale and Lyra, the children who changed. Everything. Not by force, but by being human, not by being honest, not by refusing to hate. The chamber was full. The High Council's old chairs were empty. In their place sat voices of the people chosen from villages, cities, and even distant moons. The queen turned to face them. She took a deep breath. "When I was young," she began, "I believed that power meant silence, that peace meant weakness. I believed that my duty was to protect the crown, even if it meant losing my soul." She looked at Elira. "And I lost something more than power. I lost my daughter." The hall stayed silent. The queen continued. "But when Elira returned, she brought with her not just a memory, but a future that scared me." She turned to the children. "I feared you, because you reminded me of the truth I buried." Kale's eyes met hers. He didn't look away. The queen knelt. And the hall gasped. Lzira reached into a small box and pulled out the royal seal, a glowing crystal carved into the shape of the first star ever seen by the people of Zarinth. She placed it in Kale's hands. "You are my grandson," she said, "and you are ready." Elira stepped forward. "He is young." The queen smiled softly. "So was I when I first sat on that throne. But he will not rule alone." She looked to Lyra. "You will speak for the forgotten, for those without crowns, without names. You will remind us that truth is not always loud, but it lasts." The hall remained silent. Then slowly, one by one, people stood. They didn't clap. They placed their hands over their hearts. An ancient symbol of honor. Peace had not arrived with an army. It had arrived with two small hands, holding a crystal. Later, in the garden of stars behind the palace, Kale and Lyra stood beside a stone. Their father's name was carved into it. Jonan Hart, dreamer, peacemaker, father. Lyra placed a white flower on the stone. "He would have loved this place," she said. Kale nodded. "He would have built a library right here." Elira smiled. "He would have asked to rewrite the entire history wall." Lyra giggled. "And probably argued with everyone." They stood quietly for a moment. Then Kale spoke. "What happens now?" Elira looked up at the twin suns. "Now you lead." "But I'm still learning," Kale said. "That's why you're ready," she replied. Behind them, people moved through the gardens. Alien children played beside human visitors. Old barriers had begun to fall, not because laws were written, but because fear had been named and faced. Lyra pointed at the stars. "Do you think Earth will listen?" Kale took her hand. "They will, if we show them how." That evening, the new council gathered half Zarinth, half human. No swords, no guards. Just ideas. Kale stood at the center. He didn't speak like a king. He spoke like a boy who had seen pain and still believed in hope. "We can't erase the past," he said, "but we can choose what happens next. This throne," he pointed behind him, "was once a symbol of fear. Let's make it a seat for everyone." People listened, not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. Far above, in orbit, a small human ship arrived. A message came through, requesting landing. Delegates from Earth, here to meet the children. Elira smiled. Lyra whispered, "It's happening." As the ship landed in the courtyard, Kale stood tall beside his sister. A human woman stepped out. She had gray hair and tired eyes, but her smile was full of light. "I knew your father," she said. "He would be proud." Kale bowed. "Thank you." She reached into her coat and handed him a folded letter, his last message. It was never delivered. Kale opened it. His hands shook. It read, "If they ever try to silence you, remember, stars can't be caged, and truth always finds its way home." He folded the letter and looked at the sky, the stars above. Zarinth seemed to burn brighter that night, not in anger, but in peace, because the crown had passed not to the strongest, but to the bravest dot to the children who reminded the galaxy that humanity, real humanity, isn't where you're born, Dot. It's what you choose to become.